Hey, this is Jared Reston. We're here with the Safariland live stream. Today we have a great co-host from Lead Faucet Tactical. We got Dan Brokos in here today. Today we're going to be interviewing Kyle Morgan from Blu Bearing and Cody from Unit Solutions. We're going to have some really cool talks today on gear, what Unit Solution asks, and just some good CQB talk. I think good coming from my law enforcement experience, these guys' military experience. Probably pretty well structured in this room on that subject, so we're probably pretty good. So we'll start with Dan. Dan, why don't you give us a quick bio, but where you come from, what you're up to.
Well, hey, I've known Jared for years, and thanks for letting me co-host today, even though they wanted me to be the main host, but Jared kind of trumped me on that.
But,
No, but that side, I've owned Lead Faucet Tactical. This is our 7th year in business. I've been retired, spent 26 years in the military, and been doing that for the last 7 years. Tied in with Safariland, like Kyle, we're part of the Safariland Cadre. Go out there, train CQB, marksmanship, and represent Safariland products.
awesome. Kyle?
Yeah, so Kyle Morgan with Blu Bearing Solutions. I started this after I retired after 20 years of service to the country in the Army. Spent time in the infantry in the 82nd, then 7th Special Forces Group, and then was in a special missions unit out of Fort Bragg. We're still based out of there. That's where I run our training company, Blu Bearing. Just building that team, but the mission being active threat response training. So all of our curriculums build to paint a better picture of the spectrums of clearance, but also of marksmanship and surgical shot placement on the move. But really, it's a mindset. So our active threat response course is the Protector Mindset course. We offer it specific to law enforcement agencies or school-based security, as well as churches and corporate settings as well. But we also do it in an open enrollment where prepared citizens and law enforcement military can come together for over 2 days and do a truncated version of it. Really to build their confidence that if they're in the right place at the right time, to take action. And that they are the right person.
All right. Awesome. Cody, you want to take over a little bit?
Yeah, co-founder, co-president of Unit Solutions. I don't have any cool guy background like you guys do, but got the only guy crazy enough to try and build this.
All right. Cool. Well, let's talk about it. Let's get onto the training side. What's unique about Unit Solutions, and why should people use it?
Because I said.
Kyle said, so we're done. Done, real quick. Wrap it up, B.
I'll give you a little bit of a longer answer. We felt like we identified a real gap in the market. As we see it, for non-lethal training, you have sort of two ends of the spectrum, right? On one side, you've got simulation UTM,
right,
as everybody knows. On the other end, you've got airsoft and paintball. Simulation UTM has dominated the market, those two companies, for really one key reason, is that it's realistic, right? You're changing your real weapon in some way. You're using your real weapon. You keep your furniture on there, and that's really realistic training. As I like to say, everything else about using those systems is kind of a pain, right?
Yeah.
A lot of red tape. Anyone that was in the military knows arms room, ASP, range control. In law enforcement, obviously, Jared, you can speak to a lot of the same challenges. On the civilian side, it's not really even available anymore, but when it was, a lot of liability, safety concerns, and then of course, very high cost point on the ammo, right? So ammo is on the GSA schedule, 70 plus cents around for 5.56 ammo. I talked to some of our international distributors. I mean, even these are partner countries of ours, and they're spending $2 a round plus. So a lot of red tape, very expensive, a lot of safety concerns, but it's realistic training. Right? And they've won because of that. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got airsoft and paintball, and I like to say they're the exact opposite, right? So airsoft and paintball are not firearms, no primer, there's no red tape, it's affordable, it's safe, so you get all those benefits where Sim and UTM have weaknesses, but those systems are very unreliable, they're not realistic enough, they're not durable enough for training. So our idea was, how do you combine the best of both worlds? How do you take the best of each? Because the fundamental problem that we saw was, outside of the units that you guys were in the military, or outside of SWAT and law enforcement, most guys, infantry, patrol officers, National Guard, are getting very little training with Sim and UTM. Very little.
Right.
I mean, you go talk to an average infantry officer, they might use it once a year. I'm sure it's the same in patrol.
Yeah.
So how do you create frequent training, which is kind of what airsoft provides, but give them the realism they need? And that's what we build. So What we take from the airsoft world is this is a standalone weapon, right? So it's not a conversion kit, classified by the ATF as a non-firearm, and we use CO2 to power it, right? So not a firearm, no primer. That really removes the red tape in training, right? So if you're in the Army, range control, ASP, all that stuff goes away. Same in law enforcement.
Right.
But what we did different than airsoft is this thing is a real weapon.
Yeah.
Kyle can speak to this, but the realism and durability that we put into the system means that you get the same training, realism, and quality you would get by converting a live weapon. So,
well, Cody, can you touch on? You said this. It's rated as non-firearm by the ATF, and I feel like people don't understand just the level of detail, attention to detail that goes into even that process. You don't have to go into the details of it specifically, but the education of what sets this apart from airsoft, which could be considered a toy.
Yeah.
You buy it at Walmart,
the funny thing is, we actually got into this originally because we owned an airsoft business. And cops, some soldiers, but cops were buying from us, and they were not repeat buyers. They weren't happy buyers, right? So I started talking to them to understand what was going on. And we actually took we took what we thought at the time was sort of the best of the line airsoft guns, and we gave them to 2 special forces units, and they tested the crap out of them for us, gave us a full written AAR, what was wrong, what we had to do, and that was a lot of how we developed the spec. But to Kyle's point, the upper and lower, we buy the exact same upper and lower forging that every gun company buys, same forging houses, 7075 T6 aluminum forgings, all the internal components. If you open up and look at the bolt carrier, charging handle, trigger group, it's all real steel, finishes, materials, no different, right? So the fit, form, and function, unlike an airsoft gun where they're approximating it, this is exact, right?
Yeah.
Same weight, same length, same rail. You can change the rail, the grip, the stock. And then on the performance and reliability standpoint, I think we have the best recoil of any training system. I think our recoil is better than Sim and UTM. 30 round mag capacity, realistic trigger pull. We have marking rounds, unlike airsoft. Our mags can be, we design these mags to the Army standard, which is 300 drops onto concrete from 5 feet. So you can drop these mags. I think one of the best ways to me to, where we put our money where our mouth is on this point of us versus airsoft, we sell our products with 5-year full warranty. 5 years. And you guys can beat them up, use them just like you use your real weapon. You're only going to break the gun if you did something to break your real weapon. Airsoft, you might get a 30, 60, 90-day warranty, best case.
Yeah.
So it's really the idea, I'll shut up, but to summarize, it's, you're taking a real weapon, making little changes so that it's not convertible to a firearm and so that it can shoot pneumatically. Otherwise, it's just a real gun, so you get the same training.
With this, and I'll be the devil's advocate because I like UTM or like a force on force round just because I do drop in the bolt and it is my gun.
Yeah.
Like I got the same switchologies. When I got into law enforcement, it was like simunitions and you had to change out a whole upper. And like that upper never had a rail and never had an optic. So I like when I do CQB training for that stuff so I can take the excuses away from the student for a miss. So like how accurate, when you're seeing this stuff, Kyle,
I'm glad you said that because there's a couple parts to it. Like the evolution of simunition, Sims FX, force on force into UTM.
Yeah.
Right? So universal training munition. Great rounds, great systems. They're firearms, right? So you have to convert or buy, if it's a Glock 17T, right?
Yeah,
like the full blue one. They're still firearms.
Right.
So they have to have, from a training perspective, you have to have the access to it, understand the requirements to set the training up and to execute it. So that's where this system is not for everybody. Like there's some teams that have and understand training. They have the equipment. They know how to train. They know how, to your point, they know how to maximize paper target training with simunitions. The difference, though, that I've noticed, having done so much simunitions-based CQB paper target, is you don't paint up the target with the non-markers. So they have non-markers and marking rounds, and they're 8mm. It leaves a perfect 5.56 size hole through the target. So it's just like I'm doing live fire CQB, holding your shot placement accountability and without blasting the target. So, and this is also where it took me a while to figure out how to convey this, because I did live fire CQB almost every day.
Right.
I'm on the range and in the house live every day. And we'd use simunitions when we wanted to do more extravagant buildings and still maybe paper, but we don't mix paper and people.
Right.
We do force on force. So the shot placement accountability is the guys that understand how to maximize sims and use it for shot placement accountability on paper targets.
Right.
And take those extra that split second to actually get the proper, sight picture confirmation. And it's not sexy, but it's real.
Yeah.
Right? It's paper. They're not reacting. It's two-dimensional. Like discrimination is one of the massive pieces of paper targets, and then shot placement. So being precise, right? And this system allows you to do it. And I love the fact of that. And then if you couple the marking rounds are an appropriate pain response. So people have heard me say that before. And what I mean is, how many in this room have been shot by simunitions?
Yeah.
A lot, right?
Yeah.
And it hurts, man. Not that this round doesn't hurt, it does. It's an appropriate pain response. You know you got hit. You learn the lesson. You should be paying attention to the lesson and breaking down why you got hit.
Right.
But this is dangerous, dude. So I think a lot of people that train, or maybe they don't train or understand what training is and what it isn't, don't understand how to maximize and use the force on force stuff to validate and pressure test what we do with paper.
Right, 100%.
That's the point. That this system allows you to just switch the T-pack inside of here from non-marking to marking, and now you're doing force on force. It's not a paint war, right? I can't stand that, man.
Yeah.
And the thing is the personal protective equipment. He says red tape. What he also means is, what I love about this system is if you can apply creativity, common sense, and safety. Nobody outranks safety.
That's sergeant safety.
Sergeant
safety.
That's right. Nobody outranks sergeant safety. And thank you, Dan. But it's the thing is like I feel like because of they've made it as hard to do simunition training as it is to do live, whether you're military or law enforcement.
Oh, for
now,
sure.
this isn't for every team, right? There are teams out there that understand training.
Yeah.
But anyone that understands training and then uses this system like I did 3+ years ago for the first time, a student that I was helping out with another instructor as I was getting started, I popped in to meet him, and then he was like, hey, can you help? They were using these systems. I didn't know anything about this. So there was a malfunction, or it was a user error, right?
Yeah.
They did something wrong, the student. And I said, hey, give me that. And I broke it down. I was like, wait, what is this? So there's a couple points that highlights, right? For one, on the surface, I was like, that's just a sim bolt inside of a real rifle.
Yeah.
So that says a lot
Someone
about the
painted
product.
their training gun. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yeah, so and then when I broke it down, I was like, what is this? And then I was, as someone that's trained so much, I was like, I'm curious now, because now I'm a private trainer, starting a company, got champagne taste on a beer budget, and I'm sober for over 3 years.
Yeah.
So I'm double winning, I guess. But
Double winning.
yeah, but my point is that I had built relationships with these other sim manufacturers, and the supply chain issues, primer issue, all the things, like I couldn't develop a steady stream of consistent resources until I found them. And man, these guys are phenomenal. Ship it right to your house. Like everything, the ammo, everything, the rifle. And then showing people, the prepared citizen side, how you can use this for marksmanship training. That's how accurate it is, right? And understanding that, I give an example that you guys can relate to on this is, like when I was training in some of the special operations units, flying into a rooftop. Excuse me, I'm on a little bird, and there's simunitions, and there's people on the roof shooting at the helicopter. We're coming in to land on it, and I'm shooting at them, lasing, shooting them, knowing that the simunitions round isn't leaving the rotor wash.
Yeah.
Like it's not hitting them. So, but I know in real life it will, so I'm still doing it. Right. So it's like, well, it's not going to hit them. I've seen so many people like, oh, I can't reach them because it's simunitions. They're 50 yards out. They're 40 yards out. Why aren't you getting the rep?
Right.
So even that system has training limitations. I mean, this system it's overgassed in the sense that so the first round performs the same way that the 30th round does, and vice versa. So, and then they develop the reloadable side of the.
I mean, I would just say also, Jared, I think to your devil's advocate question, it is the biggest, most legitimate objection. So I want to say that.
Yeah.
And, I would have a couple different answers. For me, one is, it depends on who your unit is, what you're doing, what your mission is. But for a lot, I think you'd still get a lot more training actually moving your stuff over to our gun. Yeah, I understand you got to, move your light over and you got to move your optic and re-zero it. I know that. In a lot of cases, though, you're still going to be way better off from how much time you can train that day or that week. And the other is, I just think for a lot of units, like, again, for the unit that you guys were in, it's different, right? But for your average police department, right, 18,000 bars, for your average department,
they'll just have 10 guns set up to
Well,
be
think
good
about,
enough.
think about
You
the
know what I mean?
standalone, the standalone
also,
piece.
The
of
other
it.
aspect, I agree with you, Kyle, and Jared knows, we all know this, that if you know how to train properly, it's not that big of a deal. But on my side, in the military, I haven't made it through a day without a malfunction running UTM,
Yeah, me either.
Sims, force on force, whatever it is. They're reliable systems, and I agree with Jared. It's like, hey, this is my gun, bolt this, but
And what happens when those jams stay in the barrel and
that's
then
right.
you switch back?
And you're like this, and I tell the dudes every class I teach CQB, I'm like, no matter how many rounds you think you shot, when I say take 10, everybody rot it out.
Yep.
Because next thing you know, it's going to get caught in there with paint, and
It's gonna
bottom line
throw your
is
trajectory off.
they're good systems, but there's huge flaws in them.
Yep.
I mean, I haven't seen a day where I've made it through training or a student teaching without having a malfunction. I don't care what they have.
How much time in a day, on average, do you think you lose to the malfunctions and the cleaning?
That's hard to say. It's out there. There's a good aspect of it. It was like, hey, you know what? The only time you should transition is you should never run the bolt lock. That's my thing. But it does teach some transitions inside the house with CQB. But it's
Which
a pain.
I love.
It's a
I
pain.
love that.
I
right?
love it too.
CQB distances, transition, you're secondary.
But there's an evolution. The first little sim round guns sucked. Let's just face it. I'm not knocking sims, but now nobody's come up with a perfect solution that doesn't piss you off training nowadays.
Yeah, it doesn't.
That's what it comes down.
Yeah, there's
You're
no training weapon that's running reliably as your weapon, like
There isn't.
as a live fire.
And I think that's the advantage to this compared to, because we know airsoft is, you can't have valuable marksmanship training shooting an airsoft gun. And
You
that
can
and
with this, though.
You can with this.
You absolutely.
I'm talking
yeah.
the airsoft gun will go like this.
No, I agree. So like
and I agree
because
with you
we
100%.
use the airsoft pistols. Until we'll talk about that in a second. But as a way to keep it clean, having a non-firearm by the ATF and then the air pistols keeps it clean, right? So anywhere we go with active threat that are sensitive to firearms, we're not going to leave any primers, any casings, but they suck. Like the air pistol, like they're toys, and I end up spending so much money just replacing a 6mm that you. So it's there for the transition,
and we
like
had
not for shot placement.
Yeah.
With the air
No,
pistol.
because it's going to go like this. But also on the other side is, some people, even with man marker rounds, don't understand shot placement on paper, and we've already covered that. And this allows you to do both with it.
Yeah, I mean, I love. So the agency I came from, live fire shoot house. We were in the shoot house all the time, but you can almost. We almost do a lot of like UTM and force on paper in the house a lot, just because you can get away with, I don't set up things that I would set up live fire as I would.
So that's a big thing.
But it does.
From a training perspective, I don't set, because it takes a long time, man. It took me 17 years to be in the Army to set up team training.
Yeah.
Like to be authorized to. When I went to the unit I was in, I'm not saying like, oh, look at me, or, oh, I'm not capable. No, I'm very capable of doing it, but there's a process. And people that understand how to set up paper target CQB safely, I won't set anything up that we won't pressure test with real people. And when people hit me up with a what if question, I'm like, I encourage questions, guys. Maybe we haven't, if I'm not answering it right away, it's because maybe we were not there that in the curriculum yet, or it's a what if question that, how about we just run it?
Yeah.
Like we just pressure test it against force on force.
Yeah, and that I agree with you 100% because you see it in CQB, especially if they're not familiar with CQB. We run it for years in the military, so it's there, and that's why we teach it. But, well, it's just man marker rounds, Dan. No, that's not the point. Like, you're not violating the 1 meter rule. We're not shooting with 1 meter each other just because it's man marker rounds. I have the same philosophy. It's like I don't care what you're shooting. That's a live gun.
Yeah,
and,
you have to
your
treat
run
it the
should
same.
dictate around that. And I think that's one of those training methodology flaws that you come back with just because you got this in your hands. man, you could consider this thing a live gun.
Like, dude, like the way I set this up, like I can do it the same way that I set up like live fire CQB with my team and troop and squadron. Like it allows me to do shoot no shoots, change up the hands, do all the things. They're not reacting, right? You are. So it's two-dimensional. Like, it's not going to look sexy on Instagram,
right?
But shot placement and target discrimination first, right? Like, that's so important.
Oh, that's key. And like I like this. It may not be your gun, but to me, CQB is a decision process making skill, and then delivering. So I'm really just training you, getting in the room, proper scans, proper discrimination. It doesn't really need to be your gun. It just needs to be a reliable system that resembles your gun. Like,
yeah,
you know
and
what I
that's
mean?
where it is a higher, like, so you have to buy the rifle. There's different versions, but man, once you get it set up, and that's why, like, departments, you get 20 of them.
Right.
Have them set up for department SOPs. SOPs are a big one. Instead of just saying, go buy what you want, go. You know, people are buying stuff from Amazon, and it's like, come on, man, like accessories.
Oh,
and you think about these departments, and it gets back to
that's that thin blue wallet. Don't be making fun of us now.
That's a valid point, though, because people think you don't have to buy.
But they want to buy night vision. Sorry,
I know.
I'm like,
you don't have to buy 50. Set up 8 to 12, man. That's enough to take. You know, hey, what's your bare minimum on the law enforcement side? 6 to 10 are gonna hit this house.
Yeah.
Probably that's the no shit bare minimum. So that's all we really need. You don't need one per man, because that thing's set up, it's reliable, and now we can train.
Yeah, and
you
here's
don't have to worry about what you
fired
said.
up.
What you don't have to worry. And this is the biggest problem I've seen starting this 7 years ago is I was used to having a Connex full UTM rounds unlimited, and they're like, hey Dan, what's the man marker round count per dude? And I'm like 600 a day, 3-day course, and they're like, I got an email back and like 600, is that for all 18 of us? I'm like, that's 600 per dude. And he did the math and he goes, you know how much this costs? I'm like, no, bro, I used to get it for free. And he showed me. I'm like, roger that. It's not 600 rounds a day. And that's been a constant battle, and I've judged that down with it. But, you know, I actually have shot one of these, but I see more and more law enforcement agencies going towards airsoft, which is not because of the price of ammo, but at the end of the day, I was just one, and they had these airsoft guns, and they plugged them in a little battery, and the battery terminal broke, and we went from 8 guns to 3 guns in one morning.
And we have so many law enforcement departments coming to us with those stories. But I think the other part again is what you said before, Jared, about frequency of training, right? Like if it's great to run your gun, but if you do it once a year, if you're a patrol officer and you do it once a year, what's it matter?
Well, and 100%, like with Dan's thing with the ammo, you know, $1 a round, let's say, just for round numbers, you'll start limiting how many rounds dudes could fire. Like, hey man, fire one on target, or you know, 2 on target.
This is 6 to 12 cents a round.
And we know it's not.
No,
well,
that's
think
not
about
reality.
from the military
That's
perspective, though. Like, hip pocket training becomes a real thing.
Yeah.
Now you go. You can't have privates just have access to it at any time, but you don't have to put it in the arms room. Put it in the supply room. Yeah. Imagine from our military days, like you go to the supply, it has a control measure to it, but you don't have to call in the armor to unlock and then let the battalion commander know. Like, just hip pocket training is a real thing now with this, to do it safely. Creativity, common sense, and safety. And you apply that same mindset into law enforcement in your department.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, and that's what blew our mind as we looked into this, was how little, again, infantry, guard, patrol officers, if you think about that as kind of one line, which we're actually getting to do this type of training, was so low.
Yeah.
Right? And we've sold to plenty of special forces, special ops units, plenty of SWAT departments. But to me, where we can make a huge difference in this community professionally is with infantry patrol. I mean, listen, the lesson everyone learned from Columbine was most active shooters, patrol officers, are going to be the first one on the scene, have to go in. Right?
100%.
And they don't get, how much do they get to do this? It's not
They get
fair
issued
to
a rifle that they don't even know how to get out of their lockup in their car.
Yeah.
Like, quickly, under stress, right?
Yeah, and literally, so just kind of looking at the battery pack is the magazine. So literally, if I had a sling on this, I could walk off, hand it to the next guy who has, you know, we got 10 guns but 20 mags. You know what I mean? The guy just takes it.
No, you just hand it off.
You
Right.
load up
Got
multiple mags,
Yeah.
You just load a CO2 into what we would call our T-pack, goes into the magazine. Once the magazine's loaded, everything's normal.
30 rounds per
So that's what I'm
mag.
saying. But I hand a gun off, he just jacks his up, and then you're like, all right, cool. So you don't have like changing a bolt out, or you know what I mean? Like,
you just hand it off and think. And this is something that I don't know, like people don't like talking about it, but it needs to be talked about. Is the the possibility for blue on blues goes significantly
Can't be
down,
converted.
right? Because
Yeah.
you have a standalone rifle and a pistol coming.
Yeah.
That is reliable, accurate, and you still need to do the choke points and the live checks and all that. But it's so much easier because you're not mixing, swapping bolts, switching slides
Well, yeah, and
on your
that's-
real stuff.
That's a valid point. And you run open enrollments like me, and you get 8 different ages, and so do you, Jared.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you have, and it's always, and some people don't know it. Hey, Dan, our ammo didn't come in time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hey, borrow this guy's. I'm like, it's not working. Well, you know what? You got a force-on-force bolt with some munitions. It ain't gonna work, bro. I mean, there's a lot of cross-pollination with this that you don't have to worry about.
Well, so we include that in our course costs.
Yeah.
So you show up, I hand you a rifle, pistol, and all the ammo for the course, the
Right.
CQB course for Blu Bearing. Like because of this relationship and because of how consistent the resources are, and they come in, and I just include it in our course costs.
Yeah.
So we control that. And it's that's proven very valuable for students to come all across the country, whether law enforcement or prepared citizen, and not have to work through all these wickets to get this and get
Oh, yeah,
that.
yeah, there's-
you know.
And so, with that, just to hit on that point, so civilians can buy this, right? And they
Yes.
can have it, and they can do their own, like,
Home defense.
home defense courses,
marksmanship
whatever it
training,
is.
yeah.
Like, I think this is great for.
We're running our first, Blu Bearing's running its first home defense course this year, actually, when we get back from SHOT Show, the first weekend of February.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that.
And like a lot of people, I mean, they get hinked up a little bit of like, why are you teaching CQB to civilians or whatever? And I'm like, I think it's more dangerous probably to keep a dude who can run a gun and fix malfunctions and be on, like, keep a dude burning it down, because you are going to have to clear your own house, probably. You are going to have to move. There are things in this world that are more important than you. And if I'm at a mall or something like
Being a
that,
force
if
multiplier
I'm
is
in my
so
family and we're in a mall, I don't want to just willy-nilly have a pistol and run down the center of the hall. I'd like to have a little bit of knowledge and work those angles and things like that. And so I think that's great for the civilian side of things. If you're really trying to be prepared, you have your firearms training, your medical training. Next step is going to be CQB. You seek out CQB.
And we have lots of civilian customers, and some of them use it in their own home. Dry
Yeah.
fire practice. You actually can get the recoil. You can set up your own target. I mean, obviously, if you know where your targets are, it's a little less effective.
Well, that's where like my students will hit me up like after, because it's not a transaction for me.
Right.
Like when people come and train with Blu Bearing, it's not a transaction. Of course, this is a business and a company, but man, I have one of the things about the way that I've started this and the branding is like there isn't a single person that I wouldn't break bread with beyond that, and giving them like something beyond 2 days of training. Like, man, like being honest, like 2 days is about invoking curiosity
Right.
of where you're at and what you kind of can analyze if you can take away, but what are you going to do with it, right? So I've had students come to courses and then a year later come back to another one, and I'm like, what have you been doing in between? Man, life, dude, work, this and that. I'm like, well, this is a hobby for you.
Yeah.
So how are you ever going to get good at this? Like, has to be a mindset. Like I'm not saying there's a preparation piece of this, not paranoia. It's taking ownership of our environments. Imagine if every man in this country took ownership of his home and his work, his community. Man, we'd be having different discussions.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, I'm getting fired up.
I don't want to brag.
We're getting fired up.
I don't want to brag about you, but so many of Kyle's customers end up buying a rifle from us.
Well, that's what I was going to
Keep
say.
their
Is they'll hit
training
me
going.
up and they'll be like, "Hey, man, how did you set this up? And I'll tell them through Patreon in most of the ways. Like, how do you do this in your own home? And that's why the home defense class. It's smaller number of students, so we can really build out like where's your home? Where's your master bed in relation to your children? If you have
Right.
children or you're not, do you have to put your firearms in your safe? Like, all those things. So we'll get to be like very intimate in that experience, man. But
Yeah.
And when we speak about the civilian market, this is the bigger deal for the civilian market for us. We're coming out of our first pistol this year, and I think can be a tremendous tool for the civilian market to train at home. I mean, CCW training.
Yep. So again, not a firearm, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask you something, because like I said, I know of you, and I know Kyle is this all produced in-house, or somebody makes it for you and sends it to the company? 'Cause you guys don't own your own machines and all that, right?
No, we designed it. It's our concept. We designed it, we engineered it, and we have contract manufacturers across the U.S. that make it. So it's all American made. So the lowers and uppers come from 2 companies in Vermont and St. Louis. So
yeah.
And the funny thing is, our supply base for this is all companies that supply the firearms industry, right?
Yeah,
so companies making our upper, their biggest customer has a huge booth just down the way there. So, but we will eventually have our own machines.
And
which is good though, because it's like you're setting yourself above, and you already covered it. It's nowhere near an airsoft gun. This is a legit gun.
It's not a toy.
But it's not a toy. But
it's literally,
according to ATF, it's not. It's
Yeah.
properly built for weight, everything, and you guys already covered.
But I mean, I say this to customers. They ask about what'll break, and we give this huge warranty. But I would say you are only going to break the gun if you do something that would break your real gun. Period.
Right.
It's just the same.
So the internals, how hard? To work at does it malfunction, and is it working malfunctions the same? You know what I mean? Are you going to get the same rep of clearing a double feed, or you know what I mean?
So it does have an extractor. So the manual of arms is the same.
Okay.
Minus it doesn't extract and eject, because there isn't an extractor. It's an 8mm ball projectile.
Right. Yeah.
So when you get to that last round, it'll bolt will lock back.
Okay.
So you get this, and you'll feel the bolt not return back to battery. So it reduces the amount of time to not hesitate to just transition, or if you only have a rifle, emergency bolt lock reload. Man, I'm telling you, the buffer spring, the felt recoil, the manual arm's the same. You can induce a double feed by not realizing that you take the magazine out, because it won't function without the magazine.
Right.
So if you take the magazine out and you didn't shoot all the rounds out, and then you lock the bolt back, insert another mag or that same mag, and then send it forward, you've induced a double feed. But the thing is, it'll still shoot them both out, and it'll be really accurate still.
Okay.
So, but that's just
Go buckshot Willie on that
proper,
thing.
that's proper, gun handling anyway,
Right.
or improper, excuse me. So, yeah, outside of that, man, I've used this system and shot it more than Blu Bearing has. All our students. I can't even put a number on it, but we have 24 systems, and the customer service on this company is better than any experience I've ever had in my relationships with anyone.
And that's a big deal. Just having that customer service.
Since you hit on this, it's Glock,
Can't say it.
Glock-like.
Yeah.
But it's built to specs. No problem. You're running your Safariland holster with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a big part of my relationship with UN Solutions is I'm doing all the test and evaluation side of everything is before we go to market with this, and on the pistol and on the fitment, and obviously with my relationship with Safariland, there's a natural connection. That's why we're talking right now.
That was literally in our spec. The Safariland holster test.
To including
right there.
the appendix stuff, the hip, the outside the waistband. I'm doing all of those checks.
I just had to make sure, Kyle. I don't know what your MOS was in SF.
18 Echo.
All right, I was a Bravo. Echoes
was
are
a
usually.
nerd.
Yep, you were. So that's why I figured I had to ask.
Everyone thought I was a Bravo,
If,
though.
that's why I asked. I figured.
I used to make the Junior Bravo be my AG.
I figured you checked it would fit a Safariland holster before it went to market, but I just had to make sure, bro.
Yes. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
You can tell he was a Bravo.
Yeah. I love it.
All right. That's really awesome. And so, just on the CQB side, man, let's without Unit Solutions, let's just talk about Blu Bearing and when you're training, are you doing? Because I know you're doing a lot of active response.
Yep.
So single man.
Yep.
Are you breaking more back away from team stuff, more single, one and twosies and stuff?
I mentioned this in the beginning, but all of our courses paint a full spectrum of CQB. But think in a 2-day experience, it's hard to cover and to really get some good fundamentals going, especially if it's unfamiliar to you.
Oh, yeah.
But when we do this for law enforcement, it's spread out. Our active threat response is called the Protector Mindset course, and it's a 3.5-day version, and we connect live fire into it as well. But the 2-day, just to break that down, quickly, half the students, once we do the mindset piece with all the students, half of them go with Blake Cook, which is our law enforcement director of training, and then the other half go with me, and I focus on solo response actions, right? Before we put a single target in the room.
Right.
Just movements and threshold approaches, and then moving through the thresholds, how to dominate the room, and then we rotate, right? So then maybe they didn't understand it when they were with me on the solo side, but when they go over to his side, they focus on twos,
Right.
because of the convergence onto the scene.
Yeah.
With varied levels of skill and different dress, different weapon systems, different SOPs even. So showing them how to deconflict and how to shoot, move, and communicate together. But the focus is, and we spend so much time when we get to day 2 we do breath work, we do stop the bleed, and then we do the full-blown scenarios, but it's tailored to, if you're a prepared citizen, guess what you're doing? You're on your way to go pick up your kid.
Yeah.
So it simulates that real, that's the only notification you get. You obviously
Right.
get a driver for safety, because I tell our students the most dangerous thing we're going to do is drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we go from one site, a staging area, to another location. They gotta help navigate. I'm not going to give up everything, but either way, I'm about to.
Yeah.
Either way, there is a convergence right there, because then the law enforcement officer that's in those classes, because it's about half and half. Every class is about half and half on our protector mindset, law enforcement and prepared citizens. So we have the law enforcement officer. I either act as dispatch, or we get our local county or wherever we go to help play dispatch for us. And there is a checklist that we work through. So they don't get, their call is not necessarily all units respond to active shooter in progress. It's like there's a system to it, right, to help build some height.
That's awesome.
But there is convergence, right?
Right. So I like to ask this question. Me and Dan have this conversation a lot. As an instructor, do you like teaching flat range or CQB better?
Man, I love them both, dude. They have to connect to both.
Oh, they connect and they matter, but
they have to. So like, I would hate to say I love teaching CQB. I do, but my point is that because I don't get to do live fire CQB like I used to, I have found so much joy in being creative with our flat range work. So we focus on 25 yards and in. If you come train with Blu Bearing, we're not doing things out to distance, and that because our vertical as Blu Bearing is active threat response.
Right.
Like period. That's keeping us honest, and that's keeping us on the right track. Not to say that I couldn't. I'm SODIC qualified. I went SODIC in 2010. I'd have to brush up on some things to teach, precision belly shooting, out to distance, positional work, and all of that. But there are so many great training companies out there. Like, this is a we problem.
Right.
So I'm focused on active threat response and everything that ties to that.
Yeah. I mean, me and Dan teach a lot together sometimes, in like a lot of like flat range, and we love flat range, and it's fun. We have a great time. But I just love watching people problems. Like, to me, like the flat range gets you like a ticket to the show. The show is CQB. You know what I mean?
It's putting it together.
I used to call CQB problem solving 101 with gun kit nods. Yeah. But also on an instructor standpoint, it's a little bit different. When I first started this, I wish I would have had my own facility that way you could know it. But now,
instead of having to recreate things,
and it's tough. But I've learned that now it's like, hey, I'm going to Houston next month, and we have this abandoned building, so I'm going to show up a day early and recon it.
Yep.
It really, really mentally stimulates me as an instructor.
I love that.
To be like,
dude, that's my favorite part.
I know.
It's
it's a puzzle.
The PDSS side of like trigger point sites.
Right, like, here's day one. I need a 4-room set right here. I can hang a tarp in the hallway and make a 6th room.
That's my favorite part.
It is. It's like, it's frustrating, but at first I wasn't used to it. I'm like,
well, the team at Blu Bearing knows to leave me alone during that process. It's my creative process, and I'm like, hold on, I'm the chief instructor. Leave me alone.
I do.
It's just like this beautiful mind
process.
But
I think that's great. With a weapon system like Unit Solutions, you're probably opening way more buildings up. Like, you're not tearing up walls.
And I
you're
can
not,
go in there and talk
to
the property manager, the city leadership, and be like, hey, not going to bring and leave. We're going to leave it better than we found it.
Yeah.
And we're not going to leave a single. We're not going to leave a single firearm. We're not bringing a firearm in there.
Right.
And we're not going to leave anything associated to that. So it helps with. I mean, I've done this all over across California.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. We had a 3-letter agency reach out to us looking to train in their offices with this.
Yeah.
They wanted to train in their actual office space, and I wanted to bring Kyle in to meet with them. So I was like, this guy's done more in more locations with this than he knows more than we do.
Because it just opens you up to, like, I know in law enforcement we like train in the same school
Yeah.
because it's like an older school.
Unknown floor plans are huge.
Yeah,
man.
and
like unknown floor plans.
and you're like, and then you get to know the floor plan. You're like, well, I know this, I know that, and then but like just having it where you're not tearing stuff up. Like, does it dent drywall? Like, I mean.
So that's where I've gotten
You know what I mean?
super. So with the marking rounds, when you're doing force on force, use the marking rounds.
Right.
That won't break glass. That won't damage. It's easy to clean up. It's the solution is easy, like super easy to clean
Water
up.
soluble.
Yeah.
Water soluble. So there you go. Yeah. But when you're using paper targets in a building, even in your home, as an example, there's a prototype that I've built that we use that essentially acts as a bullet trap.
Okay.
Like, so it's a 2-layered kind of system that acts as a bullet trap for that non-marker. So it goes through the first layer of cardboard, getting the shot placement you need, and then it stops on the back side of that. But it's super easy to carry deep into a building. There's not H-stands everywhere, like metal. So it's with a little bit of like creativity that we've already figured it out. And once the board that we use as the bullet trap, eventually you will shoot through it. All I do is turn it upside down. Now you have a whole fresh area. Because it will bounce back.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the thing is, people that use this system are like, well, they bounce everywhere. Well, man, use something to trap it, and that's where.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's like
well, you got to
to clean up and sweep up. We're iPro.
The shoot house is like, it's more of a distraction if I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
In our shoot house, so we use the bullet trap concept, but it's easy to use because I own that shoot house. So it's I know where everything is, so it's like easy to set up and take down.
The non-markers will dent drywall.
For
sure.
But but I like that because if it dents drywall, it hurts enough.
It
You know what I
hurts.
mean?
Yeah.
But like,
What's the muzzle velocity?
You add like
400.
Basically between 350 and 425. It's usually in the high threes, but it hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like on an IPSC, you could even maybe like double up cardboard to slow it down as exits.
It will slow it down.
You know
but
what I mean?
It won't stop it.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to.
No,
you know
you
what I
don't.
mean? Like
You
I
want
want
that.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the bottom line is if you're in an abandoned building or something, they're not worried about it. But if you're in an office building, they have marks, then just put it back.
Think of the schools.
Yeah.
There's plenty of things you can get.
Yeah.
Old
Honestly,
chair
you could just, if you're worried about the wall, literally just hang a drape, a sheet.
Yeah, behind it. Yeah.
Anything soft
And then
like
that's
that.
great. So just real quick too. So like this is I start like my CQB days like typically a lot with rifle, right? And like people like even with civilians, they're like, well, I have a pistol and all this. I'm like,
If you can do CQB with a rifle,
you can do it with a pistol.
There's just some
I'm-
tweaks, but yeah.
you know what I mean. But I'm always like, hey, bro, your accuracy counts, and I need you more worried about like what you're doing in the CQB, not am I getting my hits? You know what I mean? And a pistol's a lot harder to freaking shoot than that. I was like, just
But also tying that in is, have you seen a man marker pistol that functions properly?
No.
no. Pistol, like,
No, 'cause
pistols,
Pistols are.
No,
pistols,
to be honest-
I'm like, hey, bro, get rid of that.
You'll be all right with a carbine, but there's some guys that come on class. Hey, Dan, we don't have any carbines.
That's why I'm
We
so
have
excited
pistols."
about
And I'll
this.
be like, you could be doing a lot tap racking for the next 3
Yeah.
days, bro.
So I still use a Sims converted pistol, and so does the other instructors. The students use the airsoft pistols when we're doing the shoot house stuff. But I mean, it's like every other round, tap rack, re-engage.
Oh, yeah.
But it's but that's why this system, man, I'm really of the Unit 4 coming out, because now I'm inherently involved in the test and evaluation before it goes to market. So it's going to be just this. It's going to be the same level of function and reliability that you get from the rifle.
All right.
I'm going to stamp Kyle approved.
Yeah. Well,
And if you got complaints,
so just we got
At
two
me.
questions from the audience, but before we do that, just want to run it. They'll fit. Not only the weapon systems will fit in like a Safariland holster or anything, but that's going to fit in the standard M4 mag pouch, standard Glock mag pouch. Your mags are going to fit in.
Yeah. So
that's-
just understand that one of the processes is you can't fit a real AR mag into this system through the ATF process.
Right.
So it's not the exact same specs of the magazine, but I've
just
never
not
had
bigger.
any
It's
issues.
not bigger.
If you have a Kydex one, if you can loosen up the grommet a bit, like it's going to fit in there. Yeah.
All right, that's awesome. All right, so we got some questions coming in from the audience. So I'm going to ask. We'll put it out there, and we'll start with you, Kyle. What is your reticle choice relevant to you? If so, what are the benefits? So what reticle do you like running?
EOTech EXPS 3.0. So, and the reason is, and the XPS is just the version that doesn't have the quick disconnect attachment, but it does increase the height over bore a little bit, and I use a fast optic riser mount. That's the height I like on my rifle. The reason, there's a couple reasons I like the EOTech versus other optics, circular versus squared.
Okay.
I like to be able to bifurcate a target, not just transitioning with these nice 90-degree angles and coming up into it. So I can start to gain a sight picture from the top of the optic with that nice box, right, on both sides. And that's why my optic of choice for pistol is the EOTech E-Flex. And this isn't because I'm bought and paid for by EOTech. This is because before the E-Flex came out and they went through all the woes of putting something out maybe too soon and then going back, but that thing has been solid for the past year, the E-Flex.
Yeah.
Before that was the Delta Point Pro because of the optical window,
Yeah.
the sides, right? The top is this curved kind of thing, so that was my only issue. The glass is beautiful in the Delta Point Pro, but in the minute of angle, right?
Yeah.
You can get a smaller minute of angle dot.
Yeah.
The E-Flex it's a scaled down version of the EXPS or XPS3 that I'm used to using, and it's the same thing. It's me being able to bifurcate a target from the top and from the sides.
Yeah.
That's my
I think this
answer.
is going to be a great conversation because I know where Dan's going. Dan, what's your reticle and optic of choice?
Well, since I had very little to do with it, but man, I've since I got my hands on the Trigon RMR HD, I run one on my pistol.
That's
and
a
my
good-looking
thing.
optic.
It is.
Yeah.
What people don't realize is the technology put into that thing, as far as what it's capable of, especially if you do a lot of night vision work and everything else like that. I mean, it's got 3 different settings for reticles. I won't get too far deep in the weeds to it, but as far as the auto setting,
They increase the optical window too,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
like the size of
Optical
it. That was my
window's
only
big,
issue
yeah.
with, well, the RMR,
it is
it
small.
was
and-
smaller, but then also it had this like kind of almost parallax kind of feel to it. Like there's this like greenish tint plus I want everything I'm looking at, because my number one tool is my awareness, right?
Yeah.
I'm not optic focused. I'm not front sight focused. I'm target area focused, and I want to build a consistent presentation into that. So I want everything to be able to look through, right, to and through that target. So as I present, and I need the glass to be solid.
Yeah.
Right? That's my.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with 100% on it. I just like the technology in it, especially the auto setting. The old one went up. This one shoots straight out, and it's probably the only optic I went into that I could point it at the sun at high noon and I can still see the dot just based on the technology in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Jared?
Well,
what is your optic
What's your
of
optic
choice?
of choice, Jared?
So, I'm an aim point guy.
All right.
You know what I mean? And so you got all 3 represented
Hey,
here. Like,
I
I mean,
love
and,
But across the board, they're all 3
Yeah,
solid.
great
oh,
companies.
I mean, that's what I'm
Yep.
saying.
And,
Like,
and you couldn't go wrong if you choose either one of them.
no, and so like I'm an aim point guy, and they're like, I'm now bought and paid for by aim point, but I'm not, because that's just what I came up using.
Yep.
I still have like a Comp M2 on some of my guns that still work. Like I just know they, you know what I mean? So, and then when the Acro came out, like that's what I like, and just the mounting systems and things like that. And I like just a dot.
Yep,
Like my
me too.
reticle of choice
Yeah.
is just a dot. Like,
And that's where they do. EOTech does offer
Yeah.
just the dot version.
yeah. And I mean,
I agree with
I
that.
like an EOTech reticle. I mean, I'm not against any one we talk. Delta Point Pro. I used to rock a Delta Point Pro for forever. And
Well,
like,
the RMR HD has a dot and a different reticle
You
with
can
a
switch.
dot and 60-minute angle ring. You can switch back and forth. This
So
aim point
let me-
make
can I
one-
address something
I'm
about
sorry,
the
you
ring?
I don't like options, Dan.
Yeah.
You give me what I got.
No,
and
but
I'm
it is
we're just messing
so
around. They're all good
distractions
ducker.
though. Like to that point, like I want to. So fiber optic fronts with a red dot. What are y'all's opinion on that?
I don't like it.
I don't like it.
I don't like it either.
Because your
so
eyes,
don't do it.
Yeah.
It's too many things to
It
it's
is.
a
I
distraction.
totally agree with
And
you.
especially in sunlight on a flat range, it's too bright.
Yep.
Like, I mean, I don't like fiber optic because, I'm down in Florida. Like on a Florida summer day, like I'm just like I can't even. Like it's fast, but I can't be accurate with it. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I can't dial it down. Like I like a good trinium front sight. You know what I mean? Just and blacked out rears is pretty much my
Yeah.
my iron sight.
Look, one more thing about that 7-yard zero steady line for CQB with the EOTech reticle,
Yeah.
the ring, the steady line at the bottom.
Yeah.
That's good for 7 yards. Watch a video that I did on Patreon, Blu Bearing's Patreon, and I'll explain what it does at 20 yards, at 15 yards. So know your CQB hold-offs.
Oh yeah,
at the
for
different
sure.
distances.
Yeah. All right, next question. So we'll run through everybody here. What is your thought process when moving into the unknown? Like if you're moving towards, like you're getting the call that you're talking
Yeah.
about coming, to
Well,
it?
that's a great question. Can I answer that first?
Yeah.
So our motto at Blu Bearing is prepare for the known and react to the unknown.
Right.
What that means is I don't get complacent with the things that I've learned that I want in my life to be there. Right?
Yeah.
Mind, body, spirit. And we use sharpening the edges of in the tactical and firearm space to make people aware of. I'm not just talking about shooting, moving, and communicating. I'm
Right.
talking about every aspect of you as a man or woman.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to share a known with me, it can become a known with me if I'm intentional with the way I practice, right? So perfect practice makes permanent. Because if it's something that you don't practice with intentionality, it's not going to be there when you need it, whether
Right.
it's a tool or the mindset, right? So that's where preparation or prepare for the known allows you to react to the unknown just with your number one tool, your awareness. Because you could be the best shooter, you can't be the best tactician if you're not aware of what's going on, because it doesn't matter how good you move
Right.
if you're not aware of how to apply it. So, like, and the unknown is something you can't control, which guess what? The only thing you can control is your actions and reactions.
Right.
So that's where I'm telling you, like, when I'm moving into to fear, right? The
Yes.
unknown is something I can't control. It's fear. So just having a healthy association with it's okay to be afraid. And that took me a long time to come to terms with.
Oh yeah.
And I was exposed at the Radisson because it was fear that I was battling, but I kept fighting through it. And the damage that I did to myself and beyond that with coping, unhealthy coping mechanisms of, I didn't have my team, like
Yeah.
my troop, like to just, it's just looks like choreographed, beautiful thing, you know, but I was just so exposed. So that's where the preparation piece of even like when you being where your feet are. So my favorite verse from scripture is Psalms 119, 115. Your word is a lamp for my feet and light for my path. That means to be where your feet are. That means to be in the light. That means to be on a path and you stay on that path with your bearing, right? You're with the people that God puts in your life to do that.
Yeah. Dan, what was when you were?
Repeat it
All right.
for me, please.
What is your thought press when moving into the unknown?
I'm going to take that as a CQB specific question a little bit. I'm going to interpret a little bit different than Kyle over here. One, there's no right or wrong answers. I'm serious.
No,
Like,
for sure.
I agree
Absolutely.
with that. Like, I get this all the time. Hey, Dan, if it's a corner-fed room, should I go this way or this way? Man, everyone says you should.
There's a decision-making process.
There's a decision-making process. Go to the unknown is what I say, but you have to be smarter than that. And I know this is not the correct answer. There is really no right or wrong answer. Do I go towards the unknown or not in a single room in CQB? You just have to trust the process and continue to train and educate
What's the most
yourself.
important aspect of that is make a decision.
Yeah,
Make a
make a decision
decision.
and go.
Make a
Like, and that's-
decision.
And sometimes in
trust that
CQB
your
we
team-
talk about it.
That's what I tell the
Sometimes
guys.
there's not a good decision. It's less bad.
Yeah.
What
You
we,
know what I mean? Like-
I totally agree with you both. What we don't want is a 20-second discussion at the threshold on whether we should go to the unknown or
Right.
not.
I
Yeah.
agree 100%.
Yeah.
That's it.
Just
Yeah.
get in.
That's my
Get in
answer.
and go to
Yeah.
work. You know.
It's a great answer.
And then, like, even with me, like, you know, with CQB, to me, I always just tell people, like, you know, just have that confidence when I go in, like, and you'll see it, and you've seen it with some of these, like, you know, an active shooter, like, everyone thinks it's like John Rambo, or, you know what I mean? I'm like, these dudes are freaking nerds, man. We stuff these dudes in lockers.
Yeah.
So don't just go in there and crush these dudes' souls.
I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love it when I can, like, with CQB, like, I'm the dealer of death, and this is what I'm gonna do what I'm
Yep.
trained to do, nothing else, and I'm gonna win. Like,
Well-
and that's my mindset. Even if I don't win, I went out confident.
I'm gonna die.
I look,
I'm gonna die trying.
and it was a good
But
death.
that goes back to
You
the
know,
prior life scale, like building their confidence that, hey man, and that's in this situation, their lives are higher than ours.
Right.
That's not you being like taking on undue risk, but it's dangerous, man.
Oh yeah, you got
It's
to
dangerous.
start letting it hang out
So
a
take
little bit more.
actions and be confident.
But at the end of the day, being on the offensive is much safer.
Yep.
Like you said, you got to overcome the fear. But I'd rather be on the offense and sit in the defense waiting.
Yep.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. So if people want to look for your training and see what's going on in 2025, where are they going to find you?
So bluebearing.com. There's only a few slots left. We've for some rifle pistol courses, but check us out at bluebearing.com. And if you're curious, like the training side, there's a ton of remote-based training videos on our Patreon, Blu Bearing Solutions Patreon. Our fellowship is through that every Friday night at 8:30 Eastern, and exclusive episodes of the Black and Blue podcast as well.
Unitsolutions.com, obviously on our social as well, Instagram, big thing this year is this pistol coming out later this year, hopefully Q3 deliveries, and get ready to get your extra Safariland holster with the training product. And rifles are going fast, so if you want them, hit us up.
That's great. Dan, where can people find you, and what's your schedule looking like?
LeadFaucettTactical.com on the website. We're all over the country this year, and all the classes are posted online, so hop on there if you want to talk to me again. If not, take a class from Kyle. It's so funny. Let me cut in. I canceled a class one time, and he goes, Dan, this is the second time that you haven't come. I'm never taking a class from you. I'm going to take the Reston carbine class. I said, good. Jared's a good friend of mine. He can shoot pretty good, too.
That's what this
class
is about, though, man.
Oh, yeah.
It is. I got no enemies in this industry.
Yeah.
Man.
Right, and too many people try to make enemies and try to make drama out of everything, and you just can't. You can't. Like, it's just
Like, I think people think they're God's gift to tactics and techniques, and they're full of crap.
yeah. All right, so guys, we're going to wrap it up for today. Guys, join us tomorrow if you're out there on the live. Same bat time, same bat channel. And guys, can't thank you enough for talking with me. Dan, co-hosting. I mean, you started off a little quiet, but we warmed you up a little bit. It's all right. But
hey, I know
thank you,
the Sergeant Major
Safariland.
is getting
I know when I'm the main effort,
Sergeant
and I'm
Safety
not.
over there.
Thank you to Safariland.
Yeah, Safariland, thank you for all the support you've given to Blu Bearing and for allowing us to do this with you guys.
It's a great time. All right, guys. Thank you very much. We'll see y'all later. Cool.